What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another adventure here at the Outpost. In today's adventure, we are going to be reviewing the two huge new releases from this past weekend. We're talking about Cruella and we are talking about A Quiet Place Part 2. But before we begin, make sure if you're new to the channel to hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video so that way it helps with the YouTube algorithm, and welcome to the show. Cruella is set in the 1970s London amidst the punk rock revolution. It follows a young grifter named Estella, a clever and creative girl determined to make a name for herself with her designs. She befriends a pair of young thieves who appreciate her appetite for mischief, and together they're able to build a life for themselves on the London streets. But one day Estelle's flair for fashion catches the eye of the Baroness von Hellman, a fashion legend. But their relationship sets in motion a course of events and revelations that will cause Estella to embrace her wicked side and become the raucous, fashionable, and revenge-bent Cruella. Now, Cruella is a very, it's hard to really describe Cruella because the tone is really all over the place. It's a movie that feels equal parts The Devil Wears Prada and equal parts The Joker. But it never really ascribes to either side. Like, it doesn't really have a lot of the fun lightheartedness of The Devil Wears Prada or goes as dark and deep as The Joker. So the movie is kind of very struggling for a lifeline of tone, if that makes any sense. It's really hard to grasp in this movie. It's all, the tone is all over the place at times, and it really doesn't help with the over the top and absolutely unnecessary soundtrack. The soundtrack is just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit from the 70s, just going along from scene to scene. It's such a sensory overload. It's way too much. There's a scene at the end of the movie, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen these movies. You probably will want to turn off now and not watch this until you've seen the movie, or if you don't give a shit, to keep riding. But there's a scene at the end of the movie where, no joke, in the span of less than a minute, we get Black Sabbath's The Wizard that segues right into Rolling Stone's Sympathy for the Devil. And it's just so on the nose and over the top annoying that it takes you so out of the mood. And the movie does it throughout the entire movie. There's a really terrible cover of a Led Zeppelin song in there. I think Whole Lotta Love. I don't remember exactly what song it was. I just remember wanting to blow my brains out the second I heard it for that disservice to a Zeppelin classic. So it's very hard to really get into the movie because it struggles with a tone. Having said that, some good things about the movie, because we don't want to just shit all over Cruella the entire time, because while the tone is rough, it's not a terrible movie. It's fine. It's one you'll have seen, and then you'll probably never watch again, unless you're like really obsessed with the live action Disney movies, which I have yet to meet somebody who really is. So I feel like most people will have seen this movie, say it's all right, move on with their life. But both Emma Stone and Emma Thompson are absolutely amazing in the movie. They really embody those roles. And if it wasn't for the two of that, like with two lesser actresses in those roles, this movie would have been so much worse to sit through. But they find ways to really keep the energy moving and really make you invested in the movie for what it is. Emma Stone is really good as Cruella. She really has that cool little evil, sinister undertone to her. I wish there was more to it, though. Like, it's a shame that they have to follow like the Disney guidelines, because this is a movie where if they had gone full-fledged into like Joker territory and have made that movie as evil as possible, I think it would have been a lot better. Spoiler alert, they change it so she doesn't kill any dogs or skin any dogs, which, I mean, like, I get it for the Disney movie. It's a Disney movie. We want to make her sympathetic in our eyes because we're supposed to technically root for her even though she is evil. But she's still somebody who will eventually go on to try and skin 101 Dalmatians. So it would have been nicer if they just leaned more into that and just let her have been full scale evil. So it's a shame that they don't. I get why they didn't. So it's I won't hold it too far against them because obviously there was not a shot in hell Disney was going to do that. But I will still complain about it because I can. What else was good? I like the dark tone in the movie, even though I said it doesn't go as far. I still enjoyed the fact that it does have these sinister overtones. There is a hilarious part where they make you think that the reason she hates Dalmatians is because a group of Dalmatians killed her mother. That's a real thing that happens in this movie. And it's hilarious. Obviously, it will eventually turn out that it wasn't the dog's fault, that they were being controlled by their master, which was Emma Thompson. But still, the fact that we even had a scene where Dalmatians knock a woman off of a cliff and we watch her disappear down into the sea is amazing. I gave 1 star on that movie alone just for that scene because that was hilarious to me. So I really enjoyed that. Everybody else is all right in the movie. I think the only other decent person besides the main leads was I forget his Paul something. He's the chubby guy who played Horace. He's from Richard Jewell and I, Tonya, and he does a very good dry sense of humor in this movie. He's really good. I like him. I want to see him in more things. But they, as always, criminally underrated and absolutely wasted and underused is Mark Strong in this movie. He is such a great actor, and it is such a shame that they gave him pretty much nothing to do in this movie but to stand around and then give a huge scene of exposition, and that was all he did in the movie. It is such a disservice, such a shame. Maybe if they make a sequel, he'll have more to do because he technically seems like he's going to be like the butler to Cruella and her cronies going forward. But man, what a waste of a great talent. What a waste. And I mean, there's not really much else to say. I think the biggest fault with this movie is the fault that a lot of the Disney live action movies have. That there's just no reason for this story to exist or to be told. I just don't care. Like, I don't need an origin story for a villain who skins puppies. Especially when you eventually made that origin story and then you're going to change it that she doesn't skin puppies. So it's like, why? Like, I really don't care then at that point. Like, you just made this so that you could kind of like toe the line and make her not as evil as she is in the book and then in the movie. It's just, there's just no reason for it. So it joins the league of the rest of live action movies being a dud. I put it a little bit higher than some of the other ones only because it has some entertaining scenes and it definitely doesn't take itself too seriously. Craig Gillespie, the director who also did I, Tonya, he does a good job directing it and he keeps the movie flowing, which is good because the movie is 2 hours and 4 minutes long, which is a very long movie for a Cruella origin story, especially when the opening is just so much origin exposition that we don't need. It can be a slog sometimes, but he keeps it fresh and he keeps it moving. So at least like the movie never feels slow. I never sat there looking at my phone, like waiting for it to be over. So it at least has forward momentum, which is if your movie, at least always needs that forward momentum because even a bad movie, if it has good enough forward momentum, you can sit through it and it will feel better than a movie that you're sitting there bored to death by. And Cruella is definitely a movie that you won't be bored to death by. It's just one that I don't really feel the need of existing. So that's that. So having said all that, I am going to give Cruella 2 stars out of 5. Following the events at home, the Abbott family now face the terrors of the outside world. Forced to venture into the unknown, they realize that the creatures that hunt by sound are not the only threats lurking beyond the sandpath. A Quiet Place Part 2 is my most anticipated movie for this summer, and it easily um, went far beyond the expectations that I had for the movie. It was phenomenally done. I loved every second of it. It was on par with the first movie for me. I still like the first movie a little bit more, but this movie was probably like right behind it. If like this is a Quiet Place, like this is a Quiet Place Part 2. Like they're like right fucking there. It was just so good. It's easily my favorite movie so far of the year, which I mean isn't the hardest thing in the world to do right now. There hasn't really been that many good movies, but it just felt so good to be in the theater with a group of people watching a great summer movie again, and everybody just getting their money's worth. It was great. It was everything I wanted that movie to be as an extension of the first one. It beautifully continued that story without rehashing what came before it, and definitely pushes it in new, unexpected ways. I really hope we get a third one now. But only if John Krasinski comes back to write and direct is the only way I want another one. For him to kind of like finish out this trilogy, that would be amazing. Because this movie definitely needs another part. I love what's so great about what you take. He learned the most important part about a sequel, and that is to make it good and different from the other one while still retaining the heart of the first one is you have to switch up the genre. And look at any great sequel to a movie, and they have, in some ways, while kept the spirit of the original, kind of switched up the drama a little bit. The first Alien movie is a horror movie. Aliens, while still retaining horror elements, is more of an action movie. What else? Terminator, the first Terminator is a horror movie. The second Terminator, while still retaining elements of horror, is one of the best action movies of all time. This movie follows that trajectory. The first one is an absolute horror thriller. This one, while retaining those horror thriller elements, is also a coming of age story, which is such an inspired way to keep this franchise moving forward and help building the characters is by keeping it character based first. And that's what's so good about this movie. Like in the beginning, when we were watching it, I couldn't stand the little boy because he was just crying all the time. He was such a pussy, but it was all in service of his character. He was supposed to be like that because that was how he was going to grow by the end of this movie. Also, spoilers to this movie too. I'm going to really dive in on spoilers on this one. So if you don't want to be spoiled, do not continue here. But yeah, every step that kid made, from getting hurt to crying all the time about everything to being afraid about everyone leaving him because he would have to be responsible for himself and then the baby brother, it was all perfectly orchestrated and built, which led to the moment at the end where he finally was brave enough to hold that radio up against that creature and take that handgun and just blow one right into that creature's face. Like he grew into a man right there from this movie. Like this movie was that kid's journey from being a scared little boy to a grown man in this world. And that was such a good arc for him. And then the daughter goes through one also. She is basically becomes such a badass by the end of this movie. She is out to prove that she can do everything that her father instilled into her and be just like he wanted them to be, and really rise up and not only save the day for pretty much everyone in the vicinity of this movie, but also has lasting ramifications going forward globally, depending on how far she can get that radio broadcast out. So she is really coming to her own in this movie. The two kids, it was such an inspired idea to make it a coming of age story for them and watch them grow into becoming these badass kids that will now have to pretty much become adults way earlier than they should have. It was such good writing on John Krasinski's part. He really knocked it out of the park with this movie. The opening scene alone, going back to day one and kind of showing like the aliens first coming down and that first attack in their town was so good, and it made sense to do it because not only did it set up Cillian Murphy's character, but it also got us to have like a nice little taste of John Krasinski again, which he's so missed for the rest of that movie. Like it was such a good way to bring him back and then remind you that he's gone, because now after that scene you're reminded like, oh man, like how much you want Krasinski there, so you're in the same mindset with that family that are mourning this loss of this guy. It's just great writing. It's such great writing, and he puts up it's a great movie. I really liked it. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. The only negative thing I can really think to say is it wastes Yaman Hunso. Forgive me if that's not his correct pronunciation. That's just how I've always been saying it. He has a tough name to pronounce, and nobody's ever pronounced it for me. But he's such a great actor. He's another one like Mark Strong, who's criminally underrated, and I feel like never gets that like good. He's always a supporting character, but I always feel like he's playing like third fiddle in the supporting roles. So like when I heard he was going to be in this, I was super excited, and then he ends up being in it for like 4 minutes, and they have him go out like such a clown. It's just that was the most disappointing thing for me in that movie, was what felt like just such a waste of his acting talents. But everyone else knocks it out of the park. The kids especially are really good. It's tough to be a child actor, so all the respect to those two for really making you believe in them, especially the little boy, because like I was really against him in the beginning of the movie, and he really had you on that journey with him. So he did a great job there. Emily Blunt, as always, is freaking incredible. I love her. She is such a talented actress. She's the only reason I'm going to want to see Jungle Cruise. So she's just phenomenal as always. And Cillian Murphy, getting him in a good starring vehicle again, great. He's another criminally underrated actor that should be in a lot more stuff. Hopefully with Peaky Blinders coming to an end and that kind of bringing more awareness to him as an actor to people will hopefully bring him more roles, because he's a phenomenal actor. And yeah, there's not enough good things I could say about this movie. It's the perfect movie that if you haven't been to the theater since the pandemic hit, it is the perfect movie to get your ass back into the theater and enjoy another theater going experience with a group of strangers, because it really made the movie as good as it could be. So go out and see The Quiet Place Part 2. And it's not much of a surprise, A Quiet Place Part 2 for me is going to get a 4 out of 5 rating for me. If they had knocked it out of the park with Yaman Hunso, it might have got the full 5 for me, but took it away from it. But still, 4 out of 5, that ain't bad. Guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button again, help us with that algorithm, and comment down below. I want to know if you've seen these movies. I want to know what you think about these movies. Until next time, adventure on.